Hello, God's people, and thanks for joining me tonight on yet another life-transforming edition of your one and only program, Questions in the Heart. And before I say anything tonight, I must give glory to whom is due, God, the maker of heaven and earth. Without him, we won't be here. To him I bring praise, honor, and adoration tonight. And to you all our fans all over the world, thanks for being part of this program. Thank you for making this show your show. Thanks for the text messages, your phone calls, your emails every week. That's the fuel keeping us going. We are here for you. You're the reason why we're here. The Lord bless and increase you. Keep them coming, and let's enjoy the grace of God together. Tonight, like I told you last week, we'll be talking on sex addiction and pornography. And to ride with us on this lovely topic tonight is my guest that I'll get you to meet in a bit. What you don't want to do tonight is touch that dial. You don't want to go nowhere. Give me 1 sec and I'll be right back.
Center helping you treat your body the natural way. For all your health needs, including high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, infertility, fibrosis, arthritis, enlarged prostate, erection problems, weight loss, skin disorders, hair loss, insomnia, and much, much more. Call or visit the Health Food Centre now at 11 Warren Street, or order goods by mail order with any credit or debit card on 0207 387 9289 or via the website on www.ukhealthfoodcentre.com. With over 25 years of experience, the Health Food Centre is at the forefront for all your nutritional needs. To browse the different brands of supplements including bodybuilding, natural skincare, homeopathic remedies, aromatherapy oils, herbal teas and all natural groceries, why not visit our store at 11 Warren Street and let us show you the path to a healthier and happier life. The Health Food Centre now introduces the Bodhi Tree Therapy Centre. Book now for facials, threading, waxing and massage.
I am a regular customer at Raj Health Food Centre. Their medicine works. For any health problems, visit Try the Works
Centre helping you.
Hello, my name is Oyin. If I were to ask you, what do you want out of life? I know most of us will say we want money, we want a good job, we want a good family, we want good friends, but the underlying thing is we all want to have a good life. I have looked through the Bible and through people's experiences, and I have written a book about what I've learned on how to have a good life. It's entitled Securing Tomorrow Today, How to Have a Good Life. What happens to us in life is as a result of what we do every day of our life. In this book, you will learn the things you need to do to have a good life. You can have a good life. You are supposed to have a good life. Get your copy of the book today. God bless you. Thank you.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on your lovely program, Questions in the Heart. Tonight, we've got this gentleman in the house with me who is going to ride with us on sex addiction and pornography. You might be thinking, oh, what are they talking about tonight? Sex addiction? Oh, yeah, sex addiction and pornography. And to ride with us, like I said, is Mr. Peter Watts of the Living Waters UK. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Esther.
Nice having you on the show tonight.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome. You want to introduce yourself and let people meet you, tell them what you do? And,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, so my name is Peter Watts, and I work part-time for a charity called Living Waters. This charity is a Christian charity that helps people look at issues around relationships and sexuality. And our tagline is that we look at the healing of relationships through the power of the cross. I work there part-time, and sex addiction, pornography use is one of the issues that we tackle on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, you're welcome on this show tonight.
Thank you.
So you reckon sex addiction and pornography affects Christians as well?
It affects everybody, really, and so absolutely yes.
Wow.
The statistics would show that probably half of Christian men, if not more, are using pornography on a regular basis. And the numbers aren't that far behind for women either. So we say that normally between 50 and 60% of men are accessing pornography on a regular basis online, and for women it's between 40 and 50% depending on the statistics that you use.
Christianity regardless.
Christianity regardless.
Interesting. Peter said more than 50% of men.
Around 50% of men.
Of men, including Christian men, use pornography.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis. That's interesting. Okay, let's kick the ball rolling, Peter. That's quite interesting. 50% of Christian men on a regular basis use pornography. Is it right or wrong? Let's go on tonight. So, if I may ask you, Peter, what is sex addiction?
Okay, well, sex addiction is a compulsive thing. It can be defined as, if you want a phrase to define it, then we can define it as a pathological relationship with a mood-altering high. Let me just unpack that for a moment for you, okay?
Okay.
So, pathological relationship. Pathology means that it's causing disease or causing sickness.
Okay.
So, it's a relationship with sex that people pursue to their own ill health. All right? So, that implies physical ill health, mental ill health, emotional ill health. And yet, in spite of it causing damage, people still pursue it.
You can get all those if you're addicted to sex.
You can get all of those if you're addicted to sex. And then also, it's a mood-altering high because very often for the person involved in sexual addiction or in pornography use, the end aim is an orgasm, which is a mood-altering event. Here's an interesting fact that most people won't know, that at orgasm, you release more chemicals to your brain than someone taking a heroin fix.
Really?
So there's another interesting fact for your viewers today. That causes an enormous change in mood. So at orgasm, there is no fear in the person. It's meant to be like that.
But there is medical proof that sex increases lifespan.
Sex increases lifespan.
Yeah.
But everything is meant to be used in moderation. Everything is meant to be accessed in moderation. It's impossible to maintain yourself as a sexually active person 24 hours a day. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And for someone who's using sex to meet their deepest needs, it's going to be causing damage. The other thing about sex addiction is we say that it's obsessive, in that people are thinking about it a lot. They spend a lot of their time preoccupied about sex or objectifying, i.e. looking at other people only as sexual objects, thinking about when they can get their next sexual fix. It's habitual in that people go through specific routines and patterns in their sexual life. So that is how we say that it is pathology, or pathological in that it causes problems. It's obsessive, it's habitual, it's out of control, and that's part of the definition of an addiction.
So sex addiction is absolutely not healthy.
I don't think it's healthy, no. I mean, can you name for me any addiction that is healthy?
No, none at all.
Sex addiction is one of those things. By the time it's out of control, by the time you pursue it, increasingly irrespective of the risks to yourself and other people, it can't be a healthy thing.
Okay. Sex addiction is never, ever healthy. Okay, what are the signs or symptoms of sex addiction? How can you identify someone who is sex addicted? How can you say, oh, that's a sex addicted person? What are the signs?
I think you can't identify someone purely by looking at them. That's the first thing to say. Everybody's story is going to be different. So there are a number of questionnaires that you can ask yourself and look at online that will ask you various questions to say, well, how compulsive, how habitual is your sex life? How much are you willing to engage in risky behavior? How much of it is hidden from other people? How much of it are you not willing other people to know? And those kind of questions you can ask of yourself that will reveal to you whether you actually have a problem. But for most of us who struggle with these kind of things, actually denial is one of the biggest problems.
Denial is one of the biggest problems.
To actually acknowledge that there is a problem in the first place and to acknowledge that something has to be done about it is the biggest step towards working your way out of it.
You're very right. You're very right. Okay. So you reckon people should access internet to get help on their...
Well, there's a good place to start, really. I mean, I would suggest if you are spending a lot of time preoccupied about sex,
then you're addicted.
Then that's a place to start.
Okay.
If you find that it's out of control and it feels out of control, then there's question marks to be raised around there.
Okay.
If you find that you're accessing pornography on a regular basis and masturbating on a regular basis, then I would suggest you need to have a look at it.
Okay.
If there's some element on it that is hidden and that you're unwilling to disclose to other people, then I would suggest that that's time to start thinking about what's going on.
That's interesting. Have you got any of those signs you might be sex addicted? Am I wrong?
You're not
That's
wrong.
That's the truth.
But it's neither is it a guarantee that you are.
It's not a guarantee that you are.
They're indications that maybe you should start thinking about something.
Okay. Okay. If I may ask you, Peter, what are the causes of sex addiction?
Okay, this is a massive question, and actually there are loads of different reasons for loads of different people. What we say is that for the person who's using sex to meet something in themselves, there are several core beliefs that addicts carry. Among them are the likes of sex will meet my deepest need. That's a core belief that sex addicts often carry. Others include, if I have to rely on myself to get a contact or to find a relationship, then it isn't going to go anywhere, and I'm not going to be able to get anything out of life. A third one is to believe the lie that love equals sex. So physical intimacy equals true intimacy, and that's the lie. Actually, sex addiction is a false intimacy. It's pursuing intimacy, but in totally the wrong ways. Now, as to why people end up in that situation, there are many, many different reasons for many, many different people. Here are some examples. If a child, for example, a young boy, starts rubbing his genitals when he's a young lad because he's anxious, and young children often do that and it means nothing.
To them.
To them, it means nothing, and actually it's a perfectly healthy thing for a child to be doing, not on a regular basis, but it's part of relieving anxiety. When that child reaches puberty, and suddenly rubbing one's genitals has a completely different effect, that can lead to compulsive masturbation, because the orgasm is that place of release of tension and fear, and so you associate dealing with fear, dealing with rejection, dealing with stress in life with masturbation, and you can become compulsively addicted to that. You will then end up possibly using images and pornography to try and satisfy that need. That's one example, and the examples are as many as there are people in the world.
Whoa! So you reckon those are part of the causes of sex addiction?
I mean, that's, trying to relieve stress and trying to relieve fear is just one of them. And there are
trying
others.
To relieve stress.
Trying to relieve stress, trying to get rid of fear, trying to avoid rejection, trying to avoid shame, trying to remain hidden, trying to be in control. It's all about wanting to connect with individuals and have intimacy, but actually wanting to avoid the intimacy because it's frightening.
Well, that's a great one. We'll open our phone line soon, and you'll be able to ask Peter your questions tonight on sex addiction and pornography. Do you have any of the signs as mentioned? Are you contemplating you might be sex addicted? Do you use pornography more than necessary? Do you need help? Tonight is your night. And like he said, more than 50% of men use pornography on a regular basis, even Christians. The Lord help the church. Okay, Peter. What happens to, I was asking you this question backstage, what happens to couples who live apart, thousands of miles apart, and yet they want to be faithful to each other. None of them is willing to practice infidelity, but they want their sexual desires met. They want their needs met. How do they go about it?
Okay. This is a question that isn't directly linked to sexual addiction.
Yeah.
Is it really? It's about wanting a legitimate need met or a legitimate desire met. The thing is about sexual addiction is that we're seeking to meet legitimate desires in illegitimate ways. Now, for those couples who are living apart, effectively at that point, they're living as if they are single, although they are married, in my mind. So in my mind, the same question is asked of the single person as it is for the person who's separated from their spouse for that time. So the question of behaviour then, in my mind, is the same for both parties.
Okay.
How do you deal with that as a married couple? I don't have the answers for this kind of thing. And I'm not going to pretend that I can say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. But what I would question is that if, because you're living apart, you think that that gives you the right to fantasize about other women in order to get your sexual high met or your needs met, if you think it gives you the right to masturbate and fantasize about other people, then I would have to question what is it that you're allowing to go on in your heart. If, as Jesus said, if you lust after another woman in your heart, then it is as if you've committed adultery. Then is this a safe practice or a healthy practice for someone who's apart from their spouse?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Peter. So you reckon pornography is not an option?
I think personally that pornography is never an option.
For any reason?
For any reason. Let's face it.
Nobody should indulge in pornography for any reason.
Well, let's have a look at very briefly, what pornography does.
Okay.
Pornography reduces a person who is made in the image and nature of God, a glorious, fantastic part of creation. And you are reducing them to breasts, buttocks and genitalia held together by arms and legs. That is what pornography does. It is dehumanizing to all those involved. It's dehumanizing to the actresses or actors who are involved. What it is it's stirring up lust in your heart after another person.
Another person.
How can that be healthy on any level?
It's not. Okay, Peter. Okay, that is not healthy at any level. What is the link between sex addiction and pornography and the use of pornography then?
The link between the two, I would say that pornography is often addictive, can be very quickly addictive. And the simple reason is because when one's using pornography, then you are looking for obtaining that sexual high. You're looking to and expecting to obtain orgasm. Now that creates some interesting pathways in the brain. It's reinforcing a response. It's a bit like, for those who know of them, Pavlov's dogs. Pavlov was someone who experimented with dogs, and he realized that he could get them to salivate by ringing a bell, because they would associate ringing the bell with getting foods, and then they would begin to salivate. Pornography is doing the same thing for us. It's causing us, in a sense, sexually to salivate because we're expecting to get a fix. Pornography also encourages us to look at other people, both men and women, on a sexual object basis, rather than recognizing their humanity. Okay? Now, if you combine that with a couple of other things that are going on here, at orgasm, there is no fear, because the biochemical release to our bodies, it's meant to be like that, there is no fear.
There is no fear.
So the pursuit of that place of control and no fear is in itself very powerful. We're reinforcing habitual patterns of behavior, which, as I said, is part of the addictive pattern, is the habits that we form. We're reinforcing our obsession with it, again another pattern. And for men particularly, we will remember those images and those video clips as if we were there in the room actually doing the sex act ourselves. We don't remember them as if we're viewing something. It is remembered by us as if we're actually there. And so the more we do this, the more we entrench our brain waves and our brain paths along certain routes, that becomes addictive.
Wow. Thank you so much, Peter. Our studio line will be on the screen soon. If you're trying to get us via the studio line and you can't get through to us, quickly log on to www.questionsintheheart.com. leave us with your questions, leave us with your comments. We'll get them live on the show. So please get your questions ready. The studio lines will be open in a bit. Can the hold of sexual addiction be broken?
Yes, it can. Is the very short answer. The longer answer is how do
I was going to ask.
How do you
I
go
want you to
about
answer me first. If it can be broken, then we go to how.
And that is a long a question, and it's a long journey.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it. The journey into sexual addiction is a long one for most of us, and the journey out of it is also a long one. Now, the reason for this is that sex addiction is really a pursuit of intimacy in the wrong way. And it's a false stab of intimacy. It's trying to satisfy a thirst within us again and again in the wrong place.
The wrong place.
And the one thing that sex addicts need to do is to learn how to relate and learn how to trust and learn how to be intimate in right ways. We need to learn how to get our needs met, and their legitimate needs, for affection, for attention, for affirmation, for someone to be with us. We need to learn how to get those met in legitimate ways. And we need to learn how to take the risk to be known by another individual, which for the addict is often terrifying.
Exactly. So many people with sex addiction and pornography problem does not want to talk about it.
No, they don't want to talk about it because there's so much shame involved around the whole thing. And the more we get involved in it, the more we practice our addictive patterns behavior, whether it's pornography, sleeping with strangers, looking for sex in toilets, visiting prostitutes, whatever it is. The more we get involved in it, the more shame there is about what we're doing, and the greater the desire is to just hide away from it all.
Well, which could end up ruining one's life.
Which ends up ruining one's life. So to acknowledge that there is a problem and to begin to talk about it is the first step. And it's an important first step to take. But then after, there are certain things that can be put into place for the individual.
Okay, so let me just ask, you reckon sex addiction can be broken. Now, if yes, how can one be free from sex addiction and pornography?
Okay, the first thing that I would say to someone who's struggling is that sex addiction is not your identity.
Because I know there are thousands of people watching us tonight that are, suffering from sex addiction and pornography, but couldn't open up to anybody. Couldn't talk to anybody about it.
So I think the first thing to say is that if you're struggling with addictive relationship with sex, then it is not your identity. It's not who you are and who you're made to be. The challenge is for you to be able to find someone to whom you can begin to talk about what's going on. And that is something that you need to be able to do. And it's an important part of the process and of the journey is to find someone to whom you can say, this is what is happening for me. Let me be honest. Let me be real. And that's very threatening. I understand that is very threatening. It was for me when I started looking at this for myself. But it is an important part of the journey that you need to make, to be known by someone else.
Wow.
To bring it out into the open. And then you can begin to look at questions as to what is going on and why is it going on. There are cycles of behavior you go through. Why you get preoccupied. What causes that preoccupation? What is the behavior that you actually do, and how can you bring that under control? And then after that, to begin to look at what is it that's driving this underneath? What's going on in my heart? What are the wounds? What is the pain I'm hiding from? What is the shame I'm hiding from in my addiction? And as you begin to address those things, that will help you to begin to be able to move away from the behavior.
Thank you, Peter. Someone sent me a text saying, is masturbation a sin?
It's often asked whether masturbation is a sin. What I would ask back is, what are you thinking about when you are masturbating? You see, again, it comes back to that scripture that Jesus says, if you are lusting after another woman in your heart or another man in your heart, then it is as if you're committing sexual immorality. So is masturbation a sin? Masturbation is a physical exercise that causes you to stimulate your organs and then reach orgasm. But what is going on in your heart and what is going on in your mind? And my suggestion would be that if that is revolving around sexual fantasy, preoccupation with another person, sex outside of marriage in that context, then I would suggest that there are better things to do.
So, to you, Peter, masturbation is a sin?
To me, masturbation isn't ideal. I don't know, the Bible doesn't call it a sin one way or
the Bible didn't really point out to us that masturbation is a sin.
To masturbation or call it a sin.
Okay, but you think it's not ideal?
I think that the preoccupation, the sexual preoccupation that goes along with masturbation is going to cause problems. And masturbation itself can become a compulsive habit.
Now you want to crave for more and more and more of it.
You crave for more and more of it. And you'll try and get it 2 or 3 times a day. You'll slink off into toilets. You'll do whatever you can to get that fix.
So masturbation can even lead you to being sexually addicted.
Compulsive masturbation, I think, is a sign of an addictive pattern of behavior.
Our studio line is on the screen, God's people. This is why I told you, we're backstage. People don't want to talk about it.
Right.
They'll rather send a text.
That's
Don't
fine.
call us live tonight, please.
That's fine.
This is your night. You need help on sex addiction and pornography. Ring us tonight. Let's hear from you. Is sex addiction hereditary?
Is sex addiction hereditary? I do not know whether there's any genetic evidence to suggest that if your parents have suffered from a sexual addiction that you will. However, there is psychological evidence to suggest that if there is addiction in the family of one form or another, then the children can often, not always at all, but the children can be affected by that. So again, when we address sexual addiction, we do look at the family lines of behavior, because family lines, learned behavior, learned ways of viewing yourself and viewing God and viewing other people is something that is brought to us by our parents.
Okay.
They're the prime teachers for these things. So where there are addictive patterns of behavior in the family line, there is potential for the child to carry that through.
Wow, wow. So sex addiction could be hereditary.
Again, I would say sex addiction can flow through down family lines. That it's hereditary, which means it is a given that if your parents have it, you will have it.
You would have it.
Is not true.
It's not true. Okay.
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 But if your parents are sexually promiscuous, if there's been a pattern of addiction in the past, and it may be different types of addiction to drink or drugs or whatever,
Yeah.
then that, I think, can leave you to be more vulnerable to it.
Okay.
Also, sexual abuse can also be a precursor to sexual addiction in one's own life. So where people have been sexually abused as children in the past, then that may leave them more open to because there's that huge tie then of, particularly if the abuser is a parent, of saying that sex equals love. And the child carries that sex equals love through into their adult life and seeks to see that fulfilled again and again and again in other relationships.
And the truth is, sex does not equal love.
And the truth is that sex does not equal love.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Someone sent us another text message. It's about text messages tonight. Would you agree that sex addiction has its roots in demonic influence? Therefore, they need deliverance prayer. Please call on the studio line. Don't call the mobile. The line to call is on the screen. Call the studio line, not the mobile. You can only send your text messages to the mobile phone, not calling on it. You can call us on the mobile phone after the show, but right now, the number to call is right there on your screen, please. Send the text messages to the phone, to the mobile phone, but call the studio line to ask your questions. Would you agree that sex addiction has its roots in demonic influence, and therefore would they need deliverance?
Right.
Or prayers?
No, is the brief answer to that in my mind, because sexual addiction is rooted in our human brokenness and our human responses to seeking our legitimate needs in illegitimate ways.
So it's not demonic?
I would suggest that the root of it is not demonic.
The root of sexual addiction is not demonic.
However, I mean, we can trace things back to the fall and the influence of the father of lies in that. But if you're asking me whether I believe that all those who are addicted to sex are demonically possessed, then my answer to that would be no.
So you won't reckon prayers of deliverance for someone who is sexually addicted or someone who indulges in pornography?
Let's have a look at this in a little bit more. The spiritual aspects of sexual addiction, let's be quite clear about this. There are spiritual consequences to sexual immorality. The spiritual consequences are a separation from our Father, because that's what the consequence of sin is. Now that can be restored through Jesus and through the cross. But one of the spiritual consequences of sexually addictive behavior is a separation from our Father.
Separation from God. Let's take this call quickly, then we'll continue from there. Good evening, Beatrice. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for calling.
Sorry?
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. My question is if masturbation is not in the Bible, does that makes it like it's not a sin because it's not in the Bible, or is a sin even though it's not in the Bible? That's just what we'll find out.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Beatrice. You want to answer?
I'll try and answer that for you, Beatrice. Now, as I say, I don't see the Bible defining masturbation per se as a sin. But what I do see is that the things that we will imagine, the things that we will fantasize about, particularly when we're fixating on other people as sexual objects, then I see quite clearly in the Bible that Jesus defines that as the equivalent of sexual immorality or adultery in that case. So it's what we do in our hearts, it's where we're going in our hearts that is the real issue here. And if we feel that we have to have sexual release and masturbation is the way to get that, then I'd have to ask why we feel that that has to happen. Are there not better places to channel our energy and channel our resources than to pursue that sexual high? That would be my question, really. As to whether masturbation itself is a sin or not, I mean, I know that married couples and couples participate in mutual masturbation. I don't see that being a problem. But it's what you're doing with your imagination, it's what you're doing with your heart, it's where you're letting yourself go, and what you're trying to achieve out of reaching orgasm without intimacy with someone else.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Beatrice. So we're talking on, okay, you were saying something on
the spiritual aspects.
The spiritual aspects. Oh, okay. Let's
sex.
quickly take Evans before we
Okay,
carry on with the spiritual aspects. Good evening. Thanks for calling.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for the show this evening.
Oh, thank God.
Thank you, Mr. Good evening, Mr. Peter.
Good evening, Evans.
I just want to ask a quick question. Is self-masturbation, is it a kind of immorality? Is it?
We're back to
Still
the
on masturbation.
We're back to the masturbation
Yeah,
question again. I think
Is immorality is part of my question, but I haven't finished yet. Is it immorality?
Is it immoral?
It's sexual immorality. Yeah. Will it be classified as kind of sexual immorality?
Well, as I said before, in the Bible I don't see it being defined as sin per se, but what I would
I'm
say...
not talking about sin. I'm asking, would you say it's sexual immorality?
Well, sexual immorality is
Sexual
sin.
immorality.
Yeah, sexual immorality is sin.
It's not saying it's masturbation, sexual immorality.
So is masturbation sexual immorality?
Yeah.
I think it's really a question of what your context is for that. As I said, married couples participating in mutual masturbation.
No, what I'm saying, is it immoral? Is it immoral to indulge in self-masturbation? Is it immoral?
I think there are more healthy things that you can do with your time and with your life.
What does the Bible say about those that indulge in sexual immoralities? What does it say?
Okay,
those
so
are the kind of people they say will not inherit heaven.
Evan, I kind of sense that you're wanting me to come down black and white on one side or the other here, which actually I'm not inclined to do right now, because, as I say, it's about what you're doing with your heart and why you're pursuing this, rather than the physical thing itself. I don't think personally that masturbation is a healthy exercise for me to undertake as a single man. Okay.
So you can't tell exactly whether it is immoral.
The reason for that is because I know that it leads me to a place of fantasy and preoccupation. It leads me to a place of objectifying someone else, and leads me to a place of effectively committing immorality in my heart because of what's going on in my imagination and in my fantasy.
So he is saying you can't say whether it's immoral or not.
In biblical terms, there's nothing to say one way or the other as far as I can see. Now, I'm quite happy to stand to be corrected on that, but for me it's a matter of the heart rather than a matter of, is it okay if I masturbate? And I think that's the important thing here. And equally, are we trying, as I said before, if we feel that we have to have sexual release, I have to ask why you feel that that is such a need, that it has to be obtained.
So as much as the Bible didn't really, say to us that masturbation is a sin, you reckon is not a good practice? It's not healthy.
I think there are better things that we can
Better
be
things
doing.
to do. Hello, Hebel.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I've been listening to your conversation, and interestingly,
Thank you.
a lot of people follow this program because I've got friends who follow this program religiously. I deal with young people and single people, and this issue has been one of the highlights of the I see a lot of people shying away from, calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, yeah.
The young man there, the pastor there, said something about the scripture Jesus said, if you think immorally about somebody sexually, it's a sin. In other words, we don't have to be there physically with the person. It's just the thought of it is sin. So if you can masturbate, whether single or married, please, let's not deceive ourselves. Evil thoughts go through your mind. So to say it's not a sin or it's not immoral, I think we're just trying to lead young people, because there are a lot of people who are struggling. They are struggling, and it's fine, masturbation is not a sin, because we lack, and their soul is damned, because it's not just the masturbation. From masturbation, it leads to something else. It progresses to promiscuity. Before you know it, it's an addiction that eats people deep down in the fabric. So I've seen great Christian leaders shying away from this, and people ask this question because they are hurting. They are seeking for answers. So I want to say categorically clear, based on the scriptures, the Bible says our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and anything that defiles it, the Lord himself will destroy. Despite the fact that smoking is not in the Bible, smoking is a sin. There are so many things that are not in the Bible that is sin.
Well, yeah,
and that's of the weakness of the Holy Spirit we have in us. So we don't need to go and ask Jesus. We wait until we get to heaven to ask Jesus, is that one sin? There's no weakness in our heart. The Holy Spirit that tells us right from wrong. So the Holy Spirit is alive and well.
Okay,
so,
Hebel.
I just want to say, please, I believe it's a sin.
All right, Hebel. All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. We appreciate your call. We'll go on a short break. We'll go on a very short break. And when we come back, we'll continue with our chat for tonight. You don't want to touch that dial. You don't want to go nowhere. Is masturbation immoral? I'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Oyin. If I were to ask you, what do you want out of life? I know most of us will say we want money, we want a good job, we want a good family, we want good friends, but the underlying thing is we all want to have a good life. I have looked through the Bible and through people's experiences, and I have written a book about what I've learned on how to have a good life. It's entitled Securing Tomorrow Today, How to Have a Good Life. What happens to us in life is as a result of what we do every day of our life. In this book, you will learn the things you need to do to have a good life. You can have a good life. You are supposed to have a good life. Get your copy of the book today. God bless you. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome back. Sorry about that. I was checking your text messages so that I can ask your questions. You're right, Peter. Someone said, is oral sex within marriage a sin?
Okay, I mean this is deviating quite a lot from the whole thing about sexual addiction and pornography use. This is about specific sexual practices within marriage, and effectively I don't feel that I'm really qualified to go there in depth. I would say probably not a sin. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about this at all, and I would be disinclined to say don't do it at all. And I think that is up for the couple to decide what they're comfortable doing. However, if one partner is pressurizing the other partner to do something they do not want to do, then I cannot consider that to be a healthy practice within marriage.
But if they both agree, you don't see anything wrong with oral sex within marriage, not outside marriage, within marriage?
No, if both partners agree, then actually I can't see, I'm not going to say no, don't do it, I'm not going to say it's wrong.
Okay, okay. Is using a sex toy a sin for Christian couple or single? Well, is using a sex toy a sin for Christian single or married?
Okay, again, it's the same question about as it is for oral sex, and within a marriage context, I would give the same answer, to be honest. You're pleasuring one another. If it's consensual and there's no pressure within it to use the toy, then again, that is a matter for personal and private discussion and personal private use. The Bible, as far as I can tell, doesn't say anything about that being a sin or that not being a sin. However, I would suggest again that once it's being used outside of marriage, it's again, what are you fantasizing about? Why are you going there? What is it you're trying to achieve?
Okay.
Is sex with yourself, which is a very solo exercise, it's all about you, it's all about yourself, it's all about self-gratification and self-satisfaction and the moment for now. Is that a healthy thing to do?
Okay. All right, Peter. As someone said, how should a partner deal with a sex-addicted spouse?
That is a question that again is massive, and there is no one answer to this. And I suspect that I'm frustrating a lot of people tonight by saying there is no one answer to this. I think that if you know that you are involved in a relationship where your partner is sexually addicted, then the question has to be for you: what support do you need?
Okay.
Who knows about the situation you are in? The pressures you are facing, what's going on here for you. And the important question for you will be to access the support network that you need to be able to walk through that whole situation. Because I know for spouses, particularly for women, when they find out that their husbands have been using pornography, it hits them in the gut.
That's true.
As if their husbands have been having an affair.
All right.
And guys, you need to hear this. If you are using pornography and you are married or going out with someone, when they find out, they will be emotionally affected and damaged as if you have been having an affair with someone.
With someone else. Okay, Peter. Thank you so much. Peter from Highland, good evening.
Yeah, my sister, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, please, I just want to contribute concerning the masturbation issue.
Okay, go on, please.
In relation to pornography.
Yes.
You see, a lot of things are being watered in Christendom. And a lot of people are being misled. I studied Greek. That word, pornography, is from Greek word, porneia, which means anything that arouses sex. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Whether fornication, whether adultery, whether masturbation, or anything that arouses sex, from Greek word, the Greek root. Let us go back to Greek root. Okay. So my brother dear Peter, who is saying whether masturbation is a sin or not, and I have heard a lot of other men of God saying that masturbation is a sin. It's not a sin, sorry. They are misleading a lot of people. A lot of people are struggling. And this type of thing you are doing, some people want to learn from it. And not to come and tell the whole world that masturbation, you don't know whether it is a sin or not it's a sin. The word, it has its root from the word also, pornography, which I told you from Greek word that has to, from Greek word, which means something that arouses sex. Do you understand? So I am telling you word that masturbation is a sin. Any person that says that masturbation
do you have a question on the back of this? With what you've been saying just now, do you actually have a question that you wish?
We lost him already. He's gone. Sorry, Peter, we lost you. He is of the opinion that masturbation is a sin.
Okay, that's fine.
That it leads people to...
I mean, again, we can spend the whole evening debating and talking about masturbation. People. I'm here because I've been asked here to talk about pornography and to talk about sex addiction. And if you want to make the most of my time, then I would suggest you have a look more at those topics rather than having this debate about masturbation, which we're not going to answer tonight, to be honest. And I'd rather give you and offer you my understanding on the areas of sex addiction and pornography use than this other area.
Okay, Peter. Okay, Peter. So let's go on to, practical steps to getting out of sex addiction and pornography. You reckon people can be free from it? What are the practical steps towards being free?
Okay, the first practical thing to do is to acknowledge that it is a problem. The first practical thing to do is to find someone to confess what's going on with. The first practical thing to do is to bring this thing into the light. Okay? That is the invitation Jesus gives us through the cross, is to take these things into the light and bring them to the Lord.
That's right.
The next practical thing, I think, is to develop what we call an accountability relationship. This is a relationship where you are in a regular basis answering questions about your lifestyle and your practices and what's going on. I do this with people on a regular basis. I do it for myself, they do it for themselves. And we ask ourselves questions and ask each other questions along the lines of, what have you been thinking about in this last period of time? Where's your thought life? What have you been practically doing? Well, what has been your acting out, your behavior in this last period of time? Well, let's continue and develop a habit of openness and accountability with one another. And I think this is as important for leaders in churches as it is for Christians. And in fact, if leaders in churches are wanting Christians to address the issue and to become accountable and become known and become open, then leaders have to lead the way in doing this and model where they hope that their people will follow. I don't think that as leaders we have the right to ask our people to go somewhere where we are not willing to go ourselves. So the first thing I think is that we need to challenge this whole area of it needs to remain hidden, it needs not to be talked about. When you start getting accountable, you can then start looking at what was going on when I acted out. What was the pressure point that led me to that place? What is it in my heart that I'm trying to meet through sex? How can I invite God into that place? How can I invite his healing into that place? And that is a journey. And there are tools that I can offer. One of them is a book that I have in front of me. I'll just show this briefly now.
Oh, go on, please.
This is a manual that we routinely use for people. It's called Falling Forward. It's written by someone called Craig Lockwood. And it is all about recovering from sexual addiction. Now, if someone is seriously wanting to walk through and understand what is going on, then one of the best things I could suggest that you do is to get hold of a copy of this book and work through it with someone else. I think the thing about sexual addiction is that it tries to keep us in isolation. And so my encouragement would be to take something like this and walk through it with someone else. Each chapter covers a particular topic. It has questions that you can ask and work through together. And I would suggest that people do it. Take it and work it through together. And if sexual addiction isn't your issue, well, why not work through it and substitute sex addiction for whatever is your current issue, your current area of struggle, your current area of sin, and develop that relationship with the other person being known, walking through these topics together. That would be an invitation. That is a tool that is readily available.
Okay. So if they want this book, where do they get it from?
The book is available through Living Waters UK. The website, I believe, is around...
On the screen.
Well, somewhere.
Okay.
There are the details on the screen now. So Living Waters UK, we are the sole UK distributor for this, so I would suggest you do that.
Okay.
The other things that people can do is to seek counselling.
Okay.
And there are plenty of organisations that will offer counselling for sexual addicts.
Okay.
There are support groups like Sex Addicts Anonymous that people can access to begin to understand what's going on and be known by people.
Okay, okay. So for professional help on sex addiction and pornography, please contact Living Waters UK. We should have their details on the screen. Peter, I think it's important before you go tonight to let people know the effect of sex addiction and pornography, psychological effect, the physical effect of it, so that they know how important it is to get out of it as quick as they can.
Yeah. So the impact of sex addiction on yourself, it will create a lot of pain. Basically, sex addiction results in pain. There's relational pain because you have the broken relationship with God. There's pain within yourself because it's causing more shame, more fear, more need to hide, more compulsion, more driven behaviours in yourself. There is pain in your relationships because the sex addict is not available for intimate relationships with anyone else. So there's pain there that you're bringing to your relationships. You're bringing pain to society because you are using other people and viewing other people as sexual objects. Those who are caught in sexual addiction, you bring pain to others in the broken relationships that you have, in the lost jobs, in the lost homes, in the betrayal within families, in the impact on children, in the way that you are viewing others. So there's pain that's going on there as well. And so, you know, that's a lot of physical, that's a lot of emotional pain and psychological pain. Physically, there are diseases that accompany sexual addiction. Those who are involved in anonymous sex with other people are likely to catch sexually transmitted diseases. Anything from herpes, syphilis, through to HIV, hepatitis. So there are physical impacts. Those who are involved in, you know, there are cases of real physical trauma and damage done to people through either anal sex or excessive vaginal sex, it causes real health problems. And so there is a physical problem here, and it can, it can lead to diseases that are lifelong and life-threatening. So there's physical issues, there's the emotional, psychological issues, there are the spiritual issues as well. And I think it leads one into a greater and greater depth of bondage that, you need to start walking away from. The promise is that as you start to confront it, God is big enough. And this is my message of hope for you. It is a hard journey out. It will be a painful journey out. It will be a difficult journey out. But God is big enough to walk you out of it.
Yeah, God is big enough to walk you out of it. You have a program coming on that could help people who are sexually addicted.
Okay, there's a couple of things we've got coming up. This Thursday, this program is going out on Tuesday live. So in 2 days' time, we have a conference in the Methodist Central Hall in London, specifically aimed to church leaders, to try and help them understand more about this topic. What we've spent a brief hour looking at, we will spend a day looking at there. So that may be a way to get more informed about the roots and the causes and the psychological impact, the spiritual aspects, and some of the help that can be given. We run once a year, we've just finished, but we run a 20-week program, and this sort of shows how long and how hard it is to address these things. We run a program that lasts for 20 weeks, specifically looking at and helping people begin to address sexual addiction. Our website has details about that if you want to access that.
Okay, so you got a program coming up this Thursday. After the Thursday program, for the Thursday program, is there any registration procedure?
Well, the Thursday event is a one-day conference.
Okay.
The next program that we run is, if we do run it, we'll be running next September. It takes so long to work through that we only run it once a year. Okay. So check the website out for that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Peter. To catch up on this episode tonight, by tomorrow evening, you can log on to www.questionsintheart.com. Tonight's episode will be there live, for you to go over again, or get someone that missed tonight to, be part of tonight's episode. And I want to assure you, we'll do a topic on masturbation. I think that's a big area we should look into. People's got questions. I've got questions still coming in on masturbation. So I can assure you, we're going to do a topic on masturbation alone. Please visit our website, www.questionsintheart.com, for your support. Like I told you last week, we need your support. We need your financial support to keep this program running. So please log on to our website. PayPal is there. Support this great work, and the Lord will bless you as you do. Peter, as we round up tonight, you want to leave our church leaders a message on sex addiction and pornography, because I think the church is the best place where we can get the right information on issues like this, but the church is not speaking out. We've got 1 minute to go. I just want to encourage our church leaders, and
Okay, then I would just encourage church leaders to take the brave move to begin to have a look at this, and really not to be afraid of it or to shy away from it. To start raising the topics in your own
create
churches,
awareness,
to create awareness, but always remember that we do serve a God who is able to bring hope and to bring healing.
That's right.
Remember that God is big enough and understands your hearts and your lives.
God bless you, Peter. Please call Peter on the number on the screen for Living Waters. Be part of the Thursday program, especially all our church leaders all over. Please be part of this Thursday's program. It will educate you. You'll be able to go back and educate God's people, and the Lord will bless you as you make yourself available as a tool of liberation for people. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming on the show tonight. It's such a great honor to have you on tonight.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here.
You're welcome, Peter. Till I see you same time, same station next week. God is big enough to get you out. Good night.